Hi everyone, this is Ruby from the Useful Journal. I had my humble beginnings bullet journaling in a lined notebook from my local stationery store. I played around with it for 2 years with lots of stops and starts until the beginning of 2020 when I bought a Tekukor 100 GSM dot grid notebook and made a real effort to stick to bullet journaling. I think one of the things that influenced my buying decision at the time was the price. This journal in $2021 works out at only 5 US cents per page, which is very cheap. It's reasonably durable. I used this for 8 months. There's a little bit of wear and tear on the spine, but generally it held up. This journal has a lot of pages. There's 192. There's several colour choices in plain leatherette. This is the purple. It came with a lightweight card sleeve, which didn't fit after I'd used the journal for a while. I think I stuck too many things in and it got too fat and the cover didn't fit anymore. Something we all go through with clothes occasionally, so I understand. There was a 160 GSM version of the Tekukor journal, which was really popular due to its quality and lower price point, but it's been unavailable for nearly a year now. I think that there's the odd one that's still around, but generally unavailable. I think the pink mackerel journal that is also made by Tekukor, this one, it's 160 GSM. I'll be doing a review of this one later. The 100 GSM journal weighs 430 grams. It's a hardcover. It has a very wide elastic band, which has curled up a little bit after use, but so do they do on the other journals as well when the band's a bit narrower. It has no pen loop. It does have a rear pocket, which is quite large. There is a belong to page, but there's no other marked pages. There is page numbers, and the page numbers sit below the dot grid. The journal lies flat. The paper is smooth. It's 100 GSM and it's ivory coloured. It's not white. There are 27 by 39 dots, and the dots mostly line up across the page. There's maybe a little bit of variation up to under 1 millimeter difference, so it's pretty good. So we'll go to my pen test page. You'll see that because it's 100 GSM, you're going to get some ghosting, bleed and crinkle to the page from Watercolor. Nearly all the pens that I tested with had a minimal level of ghosting, especially where you rest the pen at the end of a stroke. The Sharpie, this is a fine point Sharpie, does show through, which is pretty standard. In this one, there is also show through from the Stabilo highlighter and from the Faber-Castell watercolor pencil. There was a lot of ghosting generally, and there's almost bleed through from the ink stamp, which is my standard ink pad that I use, and from the watercolor pencil. With my highlighter test, there was a very light smear when I did the highlight after the pen, and I waited 10 seconds. But generally the pen was quite quick drying in about 2 to 3 seconds. Typical of most journals was the mid-level result for the darkness of the dots, with some show through in the N60 Tombow, but not through the N55. The pencil's easy to erase. Despite the ivory paper, the whiteout isn't obvious, regardless of which method you use, and there's no feathering, which is great for fountain pen users. Watercolor works well, but does lead to some pretty serious wrinkling of the page. I remember having to press my journal under some heavy cookbooks a few times when I did a lot of watercolor. Even with pressing, you can see that there's still quite a bit of crinkle in that page. I love the riffle feeling of the lighter weight paper, and despite the ghosting and the odd bleed through, I loved working in this journal. So I would be almost tempted to do a 100 GSM again, especially of this quality. I've been kind of on the hunt for 120, hoping that I still get that nice riffle feeling without so much ghosting, because the ghosting generally didn't bother me, but there were a few pages where it really came through, and I think there was one where I even had to, I think this one, worked on watercolor paper and then stuck it over a patch of bleed afterwards. I think the red bled through to the following page. But generally, I really enjoyed this journal. I love looking at it, and the ghosting really didn't take away from the pleasure I get from looking through this journal. So I am still happy to recommend it for people that prefer that lighter weight paper. And it's a huge advantage to have 192 pages because it just lasts you a bit longer and it's a cheaper journal. So have fun. Thanks.